The eldest sister has space. Chapter 1, To be left behind. Chapter 1 was abandoned. Take these things and get out. A small cloth bag smashed onto the ground in front of Gu Yundong, and the mouth of the bag opened, revealing a dozen or so shriveled small potatoes inside. Gu Yundong leaned on the big rock behind him, his face pale and weak. She raised her head and met a woman's mean face. She also finally figured out her current situation. She had traveled through, from the last days when zombies were rampant, to the kingdom of Jin, and put it on a 13-year-old peasant girl with the same name and surname. A father, a mother, and a pair of younger siblings. In the 17th year of Hongqing, the Yongning prefecture had no harvest due to drought, and the people were struggling to make a living. A large number of refugees began to migrate to the nearby state capitals to seek life. And their big family is now on the way to escape from the famine, and it has been more than half a month since they left Yongning Mansion. The person in front of who threw the potatoes at her with a charitable expression was Mrs. Zhao, the grandmother of the original owner. There were more than 10 people from the second uncle and the third uncle standing next to them, all of them indifferently watching the team of 4 of their family who were driven out of the desert. Gu Yundong didn't have any strength on his body. This was because he had been hungry for a long time, his head was still in a dizzy state, and he couldn't even straighten his body a little. She looked away, ignoring the Zhao family. Her eyes swept over the second uncle and third uncle's family who were standing on the sidelines, and finally fell on the old man Gu who was sitting on the stone. The milk is the step-grandmother, the grandfather, but the real grandfather. The old man Gu was a little uncomfortable when she saw Lingling's clear eyes. He coughed lightly, and after a while he sighed softly, "Yundong, don't blame us, it's really difficult for everyone, there is not much food. You don't have strong labor in this room, and your mother is an idiot. She can't help anything except sleep and eat. The world is too chaotic, and everyone can't even take care of their own families. Come on, you guys, just ask yourselves to be blessed. This bag of potatoes is enough for your mothers to support you for 2 days. Then you can figure out your own way. Whether you can survive or not is also God's will." Gu Yundong secretly sneered. She has lived in the end times for 2 years, and she has long experienced the sinister nature of human nature. Old man Gu is not afraid of being struck by thunder when he clearly does something evil and still finds excuses to pass it on to God. It's a pity that she doesn't have the strength now, otherwise where would he let him talk nonsense here? She was disdainful. But a small figure beside him stubbornly wiped his eyes and said with a choked voice, "We have strong labor, my father will disappear to lure away rogues, he will come back, you. Gu Yundong knew that he was the original owner's younger brother, Gu Yunshu, who was only 5 years old this year, but he looked only 3 or 4 years old. The original owner's father is Gu Dajiang. 2 days ago, they encountered a group of robbers. Gu Dajiang and second uncle Gu Dai acted as bait to draw the rogues' attention and give them a chance to escape. Later, Gu Dai came back, but Gu Dajiang disappeared. In the eyes of everyone, Gu Dajiang was most likely killed by the gang of rogues. Little Gu Yunshu refused to believe it. He felt that his father was still alive and would definitely come back. Old man Gu didn't want to say more, he just waved his hand and said, "Okay, that's it, take care of yourself." After a pause, he couldn't bear his grandson, and asked Gu Yunshu, "I can still bring you, otherwise, you should come with us." Was unhappy, what to bring? Our own food is not enough, his share is gone. If we have to follow, we will find food and eat soil. Before she could finish her sentence, Gu Yunshu had already grabbed Gu Yundong's hand. The corners of her mouth were clenched tightly. "I'm with my eldest sister." Gu Yundong subconsciously drew back her hand. She was not used to having physical contact with people. Especially in the last days, it has become almost instinct to guard against people approaching. But she doesn't have the strength now. The little boy was holding her fingers tightly as if he was afraid that he would be separated. Because of this, Gu Yundong could clearly feel his small, thin and trembling hands. She pursed her lips, and finally said nothing. Old man Gu was stimulated by Gu Yunshu's evasive attitude, and stood up angrily, "As you wish." After finished speaking, he left with Zhao and others. Mother Yang, who had been standing beside her, was confused. She was still carrying a backpack with a 3-year-old girl in it. She was sleeping drowsily. Such a big movement failed to wake her up. Seeing that old man Gu and his group left, Yang Shi also followed a few steps at a loss. When he looked back, he saw that Gu Yundong and Gu Yunshu were still there, and hurried back, crouched beside her and asked inexplicably, "Dong Dong. Go, go." Yang's brain is not very good, but she also recognizes people. She still hasn't figured out that her mother and daughter were abandoned by the Gu family, she just wondered why the Gu family didn't wait for them. Gu Yundong is still recovering her strength, she is struggling to speak now, and she has no patience to explain. On the contrary, Gu Yunshu comforted Yang in a low voice, "Mother, eldest sister is tired, let's go later." The eldest sister fainted before, and because of this, Grandma finally had an excuse to leave their family. Gu Yunshu was worried, his father was away, the eldest sister was sick again, the mother was ignorant, and the younger sister was even weaker and had no strength. He is now the only male in the family. Although he is only 5 years old, he also has the responsibility of taking care of his family. Gu Yunshu worked hard to straighten his small body, and then looked at Gu Yundong, who closed his eyes and rested. At this time, Gu Yundong was very happy. She had survived for a year in the last days, and she almost had the mentality that one day is one day if she could live. Although this place is also in a chaotic world, at least there are no zombies, no mutated animals and plants here. After the disaster, her life will slowly improve, and the future here is full of hope. As for the original owner's family, in the end, they gave her a chance to be reborn. As long as they don't cause her trouble, Gu Yundong will repay her and won't leave them behind. Just thinking about it, the sound of hurried footsteps suddenly came from my ears. She raised her head slightly, and saw her second uncle Gu Dai, who had left and returned. End of this chapter. The eldest sister has space. Chapter 2, Silver. Chapter 2, Silver. Gu Yundong didn't have any affection for this second uncle. At the beginning, he and Gu Dajiang drove away the rogues together, but he was the only one who came back. This had to make her think more, linking Gu Dajiang's disappearance to him. Gu Dai ran to Gu Yundong's side, squatted down and pulled her sleeves without saying a word. "What are you doing?" Gu Yundong regained some strength and pulled his hand back. "Anyway, you're going to die soon, don't waste the money your father left you, the second uncle will help you to honor your grandmother." Gu Dai took the stone next to him and smashed it at her head. Gu Yundong only had time, shit, and fainted with a sound. "Big sister." Gu Yunshu screamed and rushed over to slap Gu Dai frantically. Yang also reacted, put down the back basket and came up to scratch him. Gu Dai was really entangled by the two, and he really took 2 steps back. Finally, he grabbed Gu Yunshu impatiently, grabbed his neck with one hand, and shouted to Mrs. Yang, who was about to pounce on him and bite him, "Stop, I'll come over again. Strangle your son." Yang Shi stopped abruptly, hesitantly did not dare to go forward, looked at his son and then at his unconscious daughter, and suddenly knelt down towards Gu Dai. "Second uncle, beg you, put down the book, he hurts, he hurts." Gu Yunshu was pinched so that his entire face turned purple, and his eyes were even more red. Tears were swirling in his eyes, but he refused to fall. He frantically broke free. "Mom, get up, don't kneel. He's not human, it's a beast, he beat my sister, to kill us, I won't let you go even if I'm a ghost." Gu Dai didn't care what he scolded at all, there was no way for the Yang family to get in the way. He walked to Gu Yundong's side again and ripped off her sleeve. He knew that the eldest brother secretly gave this niece money for self-defense, but he accidentally saw Gu Yundong sew the silver into the sleeve of his clothes, so he went back and forth to get it. Anyway, in this world, their family will definitely not survive for a few days. It is better to let him take it instead of letting them be buried with them. Gu Dai was very at ease, and when he opened his sleeves, he saw a piece of silver or two. His eldest brother still has a heart, and he secretly hid so much money. After getting the silver, Gu Dai threw Gu Yunshu away, and Yang hurriedly stepped forward to catch him, so as to prevent his head from hitting the stone. "Ashu, mother is here, it doesn't hurt." Gu Yunshu almost didn't catch his breath, and after he was free, he finally started to gasp for breath. Gu Dai stood up and glanced at them, smiling smugly. "Don't blame me, it was your grandparents who decided to drive you away. I'm a junior, so I can only listen to them. After he finished speaking, he hummed and strode towards Old Man Gu and the others. Old Man Gu saw his second son leave, and when he saw him coming back, he frowned slightly and asked, "What are you doing?" Gu Dai didn't hide it from him, "That girl still has some money hidden on her body. I'll bring it over to my parents." Old Man Gu stopped, "They just ordered food, you still go? Why can't we go?" Before he could finish speaking, Mrs. Zhao couldn't help but scold, "I just said that the boss is dishonest, that he doesn't honor our elders with money, and that he secretly gives it to his wife and daughter. You have no conscience, we worked so hard to raise him so big, and we raised such a white-eyed wolf. He should have been killed a long time ago. What happened to the second child who took the money? Don't end up in the hands of others, it's better to give it to us." Old Man Gu opened his mouth and sighed after a long time, "It's also their fate." It was a tacit approval of Zhao's words. Gu Dai collected the money with peace of mind, "Mother, I'll keep this money for you. I'm young and strong, and it's not easy to lose it." Zhao glanced at him and said nothing. In this world, she is not willing to make her son unhappy for dozens of pennies, and if she annoys her son and leaves her as an old man, she will not be able to live. She thought that there was not much money, so it was up to him. End of this chapter. The Eldest Sister has space. Chapter 3, I'm Hungry. Chapter 3, I'm Hungry. When Gu Yundong woke up again, it was on Yang's back, and the sound of her wheezing walking came from her ears. The Yang family is very thin, and Gu Yundong clearly felt that her shoulders were shaking, as if she would be crushed if she was not careful. Dong dong, are you awake? Probably feeling the movement, Mr. Yang turned his head slightly and said with joy. Only then did Gu Yundong realize that there was still a backpack hanging in front of Yang's body, and the little girl in the backpack was still sleeping unconsciously, and she still hadn't woken up yet. Gu Yunshu also heard the sound, and hurriedly raised his head. Eldest sister, are you awake? Just hold on, we will be there soon. Where are we going? Gu Yundong asked hoarsely. The road they walked was a little narrow, and there were no people on the road. It was getting dark now, and they had to find a place to spend the night. Let's go back and spend the night in the village we went to last night. It's a bit closer. Gu Yunshu raised his head, wiped his face, and tried to smile. This decision was made by him, and he was actually very uneasy, and he didn't know if it was right or not. After all, compared to the unknown direction in front of him, he can only go back to the place that he recognizes. The eldest sister needs to rest, and he is also very afraid. Only then did Gu Yundong realize that there were leech marks on his neck, and with his somewhat huge head, it was especially shocking. Her face sank slightly. Where's Gu Dai? He stole the eldest sister's money and ran away. Gu Yunshu finally couldn't hold back his smile. He lowered his head and wiped a tear. Yunshu is useless, he didn't protect the eldest sister, and he didn't keep the money, sorry. Gu Yundong wanted to tell him not to cry. She had long understood that tears were the most useless thing in the last year of the apocalypse. If the money is gone, it will be gone. What's the use of crying? If there is a chance to let him return it tenfold and 100-fold, what's the big deal? But she quickly realized that this is not the end of the world, and Gu Yunshu is not a stranger, but her younger brother. But she can't comfort others, but fortunately, Yang's voice soon came to her ears. Ashu doesn't cry, it's your second uncle who is wrong. We will ignore him in the future, ignore him, mother loves you. Gu Yunshu was comforted, he sniffed hard, I won't cry, I'm the only man here, I won't cry. With that, he hugged the potato bag in his arms and puffed out his small chest. Gu Yundong. Fortunately, the village they settled in will soon arrive. The village is quiet and there are almost no people. Everyone is dying and fleeing, all looking for a place to survive. Gu Yunshu originally wanted to go to the room they went to yesterday, but was stopped by Gu Yundong. In the end, they chose a family that was a little far from the center of the village. The place was not big, and it was better in a remote and quiet place, with only 2 families next to it. When he got to the house, Mr. Yang carefully put Gu Yundong down. Gu Yundong's strength has slowly recovered, but his head was smashed before, and he was still a little dizzy. Gu Yunshu carefully placed the potatoes in front of her, raised his head and said, Sister, you rest first, I'll find some firewood. He was very sensible, and when he was talking to Gu Yundong, he tried his best to smile so as not to worry her. After he finished speaking, he turned to look for the firewood room. Gu Yundong looked at his back with a big head and a small body, as if he was worried that his head would break at any time. He came in after a while with 2 bundles of thin firewood, and called Mrs. Yang again, "Mother, help me close the window." "Okay." Mrs. Yang was feeding Gu Yunka water with the bamboo jar. The little girl swallowed unconsciously, and finally had some reaction. After the window and door were closed, Gu Yunshu started to bake potatoes. Gu Yundong watched him dig out from the cloth bag 2 small potatoes, cherished, strung them together on the firewood and turned them around. When it was almost done, he handed her one. The other one, he carefully peeled off the skin and put it in Gu Yunka's mouth. Then, put out the fire. Gu Yundong looked at the little potato in his hand, and then at Gu Yunshu and Mrs. Yang, who obviously didn't intend to eat it. "What about yours?" "Sister, you eat, I'm not hungry." Having said that, his eyes floated up to the potatoes uncontrollably, and then he immediately lowered his head. Yang's performance was much more direct. She swallowed hard. "I'm hungry." End of this chapter. The Eldest Sister has space. Chapter 4, space. Chapter 4, space. Gu Yunshu's face turned red all of a sudden. He tugged at his little hand, and comforted Mrs. Yang in a soft voice. "Mother, we're running out of food, so let's not eat it today, okay? I'll go out and look for it later. See if there is anything else. There are only a dozen little potatoes, and they must be close to the injured eldest sister and the dying little sister first." Gu Yunshu was a little sad, and there was even a look of despair in his eyes. If they couldn't find food later, they might really starve to death, and they still have a long way to go. Mrs. Yang was ignorant, but she could hear her words. She licked her mouth and stared at the potatoes with a good eye, but she still nodded. Then don't eat it. Gu Yundong. If she can still eat it, there will be ghosts. Moreover, she didn't plan to eat it at first. The potatoes have sprouted, and they will be poisoned if eaten. Gu Yundong stretched out his hand and took back the potatoes in Gu Yunka's hand. "Don't eat this for now, I'll go outside to find something else." S strength has recovered. Although his body is still weak, it is not like before, where he can't even walk. Gu Yundong stood up slowly. Gu Yunshu was stunned, and he also stood up in a hurry, and stretched out his hand to stop her. "No, eldest sister, you are not in good health. I can do it, I will look for it." "No, you stay." Gu Yundong bypassed him. "Big sister. Stay." Gu Yundong's voice sank 2 points. She actually didn't have much patience, especially now that her stomach was empty. She felt a little irritable. Gu Yunshu was stunned. He had never seen such an eldest sister before. Her eyes were a little cold and stubborn. She put down her hands involuntarily, nodded obediently, and watched her go out in a daze. After went out, Gu Yundong let out a small breath. She was an orphan in her last life, and she had bad luck since she was a child. The people she met, whether it was the head nurse of the orphanage or the teachers of the school, treated her in a mediocre and even bad manner. Therefore, there were suddenly a few relatives around her who were wholeheartedly thinking of her, and she was a little at a loss. "Now, I am a little fortunate to be separated from the Gu family. There is no one else besides my younger siblings and the stupid Yang family, and no one suspects that she has actually changed her core." Gu Yundong slowly walked to the corner of the house, looked left and right, and there was no movement. Then she closed her eyes slightly, took a breath, and the next moment, she suddenly had a small bag of rice in her hand. She laughed, her eyes slightly brightened. Sure enough, her space followed. The supplies in the space also followed. This space was acquired by her inadvertently when the apocalypse first arrived. It is about the size of an acre of land. The time inside is still, what is put in, and what is taken out. When he got this space, Gu Yundong began to collect supplies. After all, no one knows when the apocalypse will end, and if you want to live, you can't do it without something. Now she has a lot of things in her space, including rice, white flour, and mineral water. With these things, what else should she be afraid of on the way to escape? When Gu Dai hit her head with a stone, she almost subconsciously went to the space to take out a dagger to fight back, and then realized that her space was still there. However, he was stunned for a while, and after a while, he was brought down by Gu Dai. This hatred, if there is a chance, she must get it back. Gu Yundong took out water and alcohol from the space again, and firstly disinfected the wound on his head. Fortunately, Gu Dai's strength is not very strong. The main reason for her fainting is that she is hungry, but the injury is not serious. Then he squatted down, took out the small cloth bag that he just took out, and quietly poured the rice into it. After thinking about it, I took out 2 more bags of pickles and put them in a bamboo tube. Then he exhaled and walked back into the house. End of this chapter. The eldest sister has space. Chapter 5, White Rice. Chapter 5, White Rice. As soon as he walked into the yard, Gu Yundong heard a suspicious voice coming from the room. Mother, the eldest sister seems to be different from before. In the past, the eldest sister always cried and was especially afraid of pain, but now it seems to be all at once. That's right, it's very manly. Gu Yundong, will speak. What is a special man? However, her personality is indeed very different from the previous Gu Yundong, so she still has to come up with a reasonable excuse to explain it. It's just that before she could think of it, Gu Yunshu's voice rang again. It must have been Grandpa who drove us away and irritated the eldest sister. Dad is not here, so she feels that it is too difficult for the eldest sister to protect and take care of us. Mother, do you think there is a way to make me grow up at once, and then become a strong worker in the family? In this way, eldest sister doesn't have to pretend to be a special man. I'm useless now. Mr. Yang tilted his head, not understanding clearly. I grew up, so tall. Gu Yundong was in a complicated mood. This little thing was very young, but he was very worried. But listening to his voice, you can still tell that his voice is fine. It seemed that although Gu Dai had a shocking mark on his neck, he wasn't really hurt. Gu Yundong picked up the thing in his hand, his footsteps became heavier, and the sound inside stopped immediately. She pushed open the door, and saw Gu Yunshu with his hand stretched out in front of Yang and Gu Yunka. His face collapsed tightly, and he looked alert. Seeing it was her, he breathed a sigh of relief, with a big smile on his face. Eldest sister, you're back. When he looked away, seeing the thing in her hand, those big eyes instantly lit up. I found something to eat. Something? Well. Gu Yundong put the cloth bag on the ground. I'll go to the kitchen to see if there is any water. She turned around and went out again. There must be no water in this place. She was just pretending, went to the kitchen to find a jar, took out the mineral water in the space and poured it in, and then returned to the room. In the room, Gu Yunshu's eyes widened, looking at the white rice in the bag in disbelief. His voice stuttered, big sister, where did you get it? There are so many, so white. He had never seen rice so white and big. Each one seemed to be transparent, and it looked better than the most expensive rice in the town's rice shop. Gu Yunshu couldn't help swallowing, feeling like he was in a dream. I found it under the bed in one of the family's rooms next door. Gu Yundong said. Gu Yunshu was stunned for a moment, then suddenly realized, I see, that family must be like a second aunt, secretly hiding their food and forgetting to take it with them when they escaped. After speaking, he nodded vigorously. When she was about to leave the village before, the second aunt secretly dug out 2 large packages of dried sweet potatoes from under the bed and planned to take them away, which she had secretly detained for her own room for so many years. Unexpectedly, when the nanny saw it, he scolded his second aunt as a white-eyed wolf at home, and the whole Gu family knew about it. Now that he heard that the white rice was found under the bed, Gu Yunshu immediately found a reasonable explanation. Gu Yundong felt that he didn't need to think of excuses at all. He could always find a reason for her. So she nodded, it should be. Then she turned and closed the door, rekindling the previous fire. Added water to the crock pot. Gu Yundong planned to cook some porridge to drink. The whole family is very hungry, and their stomachs are empty, and they can only eat soft and tender food. As soon as she fell, Gu Yunshu felt distressed. Sister, eat less. I'm not really hungry, I can eat less. Don't you want to grow up quickly? How can you grow up if you don't eat more? Gu Yunshu was stunned for a while, and suddenly became confused. He wanted to grow up quickly, but they didn't have much food. Now they eat too much. What should they do next? He was in a dilemma, but Gu Yundong had already cooked the porridge swiftly. End of this chapter. The eldest sister has space. Chapter 6, Subtle Movement. Chapter 6, Subtle Movements. It wasn't until the warm porridge was eaten into his stomach that Gu Yundong breathed out a sigh of satisfaction. This body is too bad. Although she did not eat very well in the apocalypse, she had space early and collected a lot of supplies. Even if she is not as free as before the end of the world, she is still better than most people. Much better. Eating 7 points full is not a problem. But here, even before escaping the famine, the porridge eaten is only full of water, and there are not many rice grains at all. After escaping from the famine, there is only one meal a day, and it is rare to be able to eat too full. Sister, it's delicious and fragrant. Gu Yunshu drank very slowly. He had never eaten such a delicious porridge. His expression was so intoxicated, his mouth was bulging, and he was a little reluctant to swallow it. Mr. Yang couldn't wait to take 2 sips and began to feed Gu Yunka carefully. The little girl has no strength. Now that she drank the porridge, her eyes brightened a little, and the corners of her eyes were curved, and she suddenly became energetic. Good to eat. At that moment, Gu Yundong felt somewhat satisfied. This feeling is very unfamiliar. She couldn't help covering her chest. It was rare for a family of 4 to have a rich dinner, and everyone felt extremely happy, clutching their stomachs and laying on the ground not wanting to move. Gu Yundong's stomach is no longer burning, and he has strength, and finally he has the energy to think about the next path. Now they are not short of food, and she has enough food in her space, which can fully support them to the relatively wealthy city. It's just that there is no transportation, and the road must be very slow. The other things are okay to say. The most worrying thing is the fear of encountering pirates and starving refugees. This is the biggest crisis on the road. Especially since their family doesn't even have an adult man, they are easy targets for bullying in the eyes of others, and they can easily become the target of those with ulterior motives. It seems that they can no longer take the road, at least not to go to places with many people. When they left home, Gu Dajiang told her about the routes and directions of several nearby prefectures and cities, and she had some idea. Speaking of Gu Dajiang, he doesn't know whether he is alive or dead now, and where he is. Gu Yunshu also misses his father, especially after a good meal. He misses him even more. The little hand could not help but wiped his eyes, raised his big head, and tried hard not to let his tears fall. As soon as Gu Yundong looked back, he was a little frightened when he saw that his head seemed to be broken off. She hurriedly coughed and said, "It's getting late, let's rest early." She let the 3 of them lie down on the kong, and took out the thin quilt from the basket to cover them. They brought it from home, and Mr. Yang kept it in the back basket on his body. In addition to the little girl Gu Yunka, there was a thin quilt, 2 clothes, and a bamboo tube for water. There was nothing else in the back basket. Gu Yunshu lay down only to realize that eldest sister was not up, so he sat up hurriedly. "Eldest sister, aren't you going to sleep?" "I slept a lot during the day, but I can't sleep now, so go to sleep." "Oh." Gu Yunshu nodded and lay down in peace. After eating and drinking, they fell asleep very quickly. After a while, the 3 people's breathing became stable. Gu Yundong sat down beside her. She didn't plan to sleep at all. In the apocalypse, as long as you stay outside for the night, you will have to keep one person to watch the night, otherwise you will never know when you are in danger. She has developed a habit, even here. Fortunately, she was awake this night. Yang and the others fell asleep for only half an hour when she heard a slight movement outside. End of this chapter. The eldest sister has space. Chapter 7, All Be Damned. Chapter 7, All Damn. Gu Yundong suddenly opened his eyes and walked into the courtyard outside. The walls of the yard are not very high. There is a sauce jar under the corner of the wall, and a wooden board covers it. Gu Yundong stepped on it slowly, exposing half of his head and looking out of the wall. I saw 2 tall men standing under the moonlight. One of them lowered his voice and said, "Be quiet, don't wake people up." The other person rubbed his leg. "I didn't know there was a rock here, didn't I accidentally trip over it?" Gu Yundong squinted slightly. This stone was placed by her before. In addition to this stone, there are wooden pegs across the door. Fortunately, she put something away, otherwise she wouldn't be able to hear the movement so quickly. These two are sneaky, what do they want to do? She thought to herself. The two men just turned slightly sideways, showing their faces. Gu Yindong's face suddenly changed. She inherited the memory of the original owner. In her memory, she had only seen these two faces in the morning. Was not separated from the Gu family at that time, when Gu Dai accidentally bumped into one of them while walking. At that time, the fierce eyes of the two were like a wolf seeing its prey, and it was frightening just by looking at it. Gu Dai apologized repeatedly. The two of them kicked Gu Dai fiercely before leaving. Just before leaving, Gu Yundong clearly saw the malicious look in their eyes. So, what are they doing here right now? Okay, be careful, don't be fussy. The voices of the two people under the corner of the wall sounded low again. I know, hurry up. When I think of those two white and tender little dolls, my saliva is drooling. We are lucky, one of them happens to be in a coma. We only need to deal with the other one, the two little ones. The doll is ours. You know what to eat. I said you stepped on it before, right? Is this the place? The two walked forward while talking. Gu Yindong's face changed drastically, his hands and feet were cold, and he almost fell from the sauce jar uncontrollably. In just 2 sentences, the amount of information is huge. In the chaotic world, of course, there are people who change their children and eat. Gu Yindong spent a year in the end times, and she even saw such a person with her own eyes. No wonder the two men's eyes were red and malicious, and there was a stench of decay on their bodies. I see. The two were clearly addicted. Gu Yindong's eyes gradually became cold and cruel, even with a hint of bloodthirsty. In her opinion, no matter what kind of environment you are in, you must at least have the most basic bottom line, otherwise you will not be as good as a beast who survives by instinct. And this is her bottom line. Not to mention listening to their words, is this targeting them? 4 people, 2 little dolls, one was carried in a coma, and they only had to deal with one young family. Then we can't let them go. Gu Yindong saw that the two had walked to the door of the house in front of them, and went in quietly. She moved her hands and feet. Although her strength slowly returned, her body was still very weak. To kill 2 people in close combat is to go up to deliver food, but unfortunately she couldn't get a gun in the apocalypse, otherwise long-range attacks would easily destroy them. And many more. No gun, but she seems to have a crossbow. I accidentally saw it once when I was collecting supplies, but there were not many arrows, and she seldom used it. Gu Yindong's eyes were filled with a smile, and he rolled over from the wall. She quickly walked to the door of the house next door, the two of them entered, and the courtyard door was not closed. Gu Yindong leaned his head slightly and saw one of them standing in the courtyard, but the other was missing. Good, one by one. Gu Yindong adjusted the crossbow and aimed it at his neck. End of this chapter. The eldest sister has space. Chapter 8, Kill. Chapter 8, Kill. With a sound of, the crossbow arrow suddenly shot at the man's throat with the momentum of thunder, and pierced through his neck and nailed it to the ground with a base. The man didn't even have time to react, but his eyes widened in disbelief, his throat made a hee-hee sound with difficulty, and he finally fell to the ground with a face full of unwillingness. Gu Yindong exhaled, and then took the crossbow and walked inside carefully. As soon as he took 2 steps, there was the sound of stumbling footsteps from inside the house. Gu Yindong suddenly stopped, and the crossbow in his hand also aimed at the door of the room. Soon, a man stumbled out of the room, covering his arm with one hand, blood dripping between his fingers. His face was full of panic, and when he walked to the yard, he wanted to call his companion, but when he turned his head, he saw that his companion had fallen to the ground, dying. Gu Yindong was surprised, the crossbow arrow in his hand was ready to go. But before she could take aim, another man came out of the room. The man was dressed in strong suits, his face was full of chills, and he was holding a sword in his hand, and the blood on the tip of the sword was falling drop by drop. He saw Gu Yindong standing there at a glance, turned his head and saw the man lying on the ground again. He knew it, and nodded to her, "Thank you, Gu Yindong." So there were people in this room? And it seems that he is a very good trainer. The man has turned his head and looked again at the thief who broke into their courtyard and tried to kill. The latter knelt on the ground in despair. Forgive my life, it's me who is obsessed with eyes and can't recognize Mount Tai. I'm damned, I'm a bastard, you let me go. I'm really hungry, there's nothing I can do in this world, what? Before he could finish speaking, the sword in the man's hand suddenly slashed and pierced his neck. The man only gave a short exclamation, and the man fell to the ground without making a sound. The two things that were inferior to beasts were already dead, but Gu Yundong didn't dare to relax. Standing face to face with the man, she began to evaluate the current situation. At this moment, another figure ran out of the room, a small figure that looked no more than 5 or 6 years old. Uncle Gao, Brother Bai is awake, come in quickly. A soft and tender voice sounded, and the little figure ran out, hugged the man's thigh directly, raised his head and spoke. Gao Feng immediately covered his eyes, preventing him from seeing the death of the two people on the ground. The expression that was indifferent and reserved just now changed instantly, and the voice was gentle as if he had changed a person. Uncle Gao knows, you go in first, don't let your sister come out, tell you Brother Bai, I still have something to deal with here, it'll be fine right now. Okay. The little boy nodded obediently, turned around by Gao Feng, and ran back again. He didn't even see Gu Yundong who had been standing in the yard. Gu Yundong's expression was like being struck by lightning. Wrong. The target of these two scumbags is not their family of 4, but the 4 people who also have 2 children in this courtyard. Yes, before, the 2 of them also talked about the white and tender little doll, and their little brother and sister are skinny, so they can't match with the white and tender. Gu Yundong quickly found her position, she put away the crossbow, and said to Gao Feng with a serious expression, don't thank me, I also happened to hear what they said, knowing that these 2 are not good things, and the madness actually wants to be right. The 2 little dolls start. Anyone with a little conscience will not sit idly by, so I followed them and thought I would help you if I could. End of this chapter. The eldest sister has space. Chapter 9, Soin. Chapter 9, Searching for Money. Gao Feng nodded slightly, not sure whether to believe her or not, but took a second look at the crossbow in her hand. Seeing that she hid behind her, she withdrew her gaze wisely, and said, the girl has a heart, these 2 really deserve to die. Since these 2 people are already dead, we are half of what they have on them. Gu Yundong didn't mind taking things from dead people at all, especially in this world. Gao Feng was very disgusted, I don't need it, the girl can just take it. Gu Yundong just wanted to ask him, this surnamed Gao is not short of money. As soon as he agreed, Gu Yundong squatted down and turned over the money bags on the 2 of them. Gao Feng turned his head and went back to the house. Gu Yundong's movements were only a little, and he continued to pick up other people's clothes as if nothing had happened. There are quite a few things on their bodies, 5 taels of silver, 1 jade pendant, 2 daggers, and 3 small packets of sweat medicine. Gu Yundong only took the silver jade pendant, not the dagger. After thinking about it, I brought the packs of sweat medicine with me. Just as she was about to leave after, Gao Feng came out again with a cloth bag in his hand. Thank you for your help today. There are some steamed buns here, please accept them. Gu Yundong was stunned for a moment, then looked at him in surprise. Immediately took it and said, I'm so sorry, in fact, even if I don't come, it's more than enough to deal with them with the skills of the big brother. The corner of Gao Feng's mouth twitched. If you didn't collect things so neatly, this would be more convincing. Help me close the courtyard gate when you go out. Okay. Gu Yundong took something and turned around and left. She didn't ask people what to do with the 2 corpses, and she didn't ask each other their names. It was just a chance encounter on the road to escape, and there will be no chance to meet again in the future. Gu Yundong returned to his small courtyard. The steamed buns and pancakes in his hand were already cold. If they were hot again tomorrow, they could eat them, but they could add extra meals to a few people. The 3 people on the con were still sleeping, but they were curled up in a ball with each other. Gu Yundong frowned, now is the time when the temperature difference between day and night is large. It was very hot during the day, but at night the temperature suddenly dropped by more than 10 degrees, and they only had a thin quilt, which could not even cover Yang's feet. Even if they put all the clothes on it, it was still very cold. No wonder he was shivering in sleep. She subconsciously wanted to take the quilt out of her own space, but then she thought that there was someone next door, so it would be better to be more cautious. So he simply took firewood and lit it on the side. Although the family had run out of food, there was a lot of dry firewood piled up on the courtyard wall, which was convenient for her. As soon as the fire started, the temperature in the room rose instantly. The three people who were originally huddled together on the Kong felt more comfortable, their brows loosened, and they slept warmly and soundly. Gu Yundong sat next to him, but his ears stood up. Unexpectedly, only half an hour passed when there was movement outside the door. She stood up with a smack and walked out of the house, still standing on the sauce jar and looking out. I saw a carriage approaching the door, and Gao Feng in the yard next door was carrying a boy into the carriage. Aware of her gaze, Gao Feng raised his head and nodded to her. I'm arguing with the girl. Are you gone? Yes. After Gao Feng finished speaking, the man also got in, the reins flicked, and the carriage rumbled farther and farther under the moonlight. Until he could no longer see the shadow, Gu Yundong got down from the sauce jar. She entered the room and sat for another quarter of an hour before she walked to the edge of the Kong and hugged the little girl Gu Yunka who was sleeping in the middle. End of this chapter. The eldest sister has space. Chapter 10, Milk is delicious. Chapter 10, Milk is delicious. The little girl's bones were soft, as if it would break with a little force. Gu Yundong didn't dare to exert any force, and held it very carefully. Little girl, wake up. She hugged her a little further away from the Kong before shaking her gently to wake him up. The little girl stared blankly, looking at her blankly with her eyes open. Eldest sister. Come on, open your mouth and drink this. Oh. Gu Yunka didn't even ask anything, and he didn't even see what was handed to him. He opened his mouth very confidently and drank it. After taking a few sips, he was suddenly stunned. Sweet. Drink as much as you like. Gu Yundong was holding the milk from the space, put it on the fire to warm it up a little, and then fed it to Gu Yunka to drink. The little girl is really too thin and thin. She is obviously 3 years old, but now she can't even walk steadily, and she is in a drowsiness for more than half of the day. Gu Yunka is different from Gu Yunshu. The latter is a boy no matter what, and still occupies such a small position in the heart of old man Gu. Naturally, he eats a little more than Gu Yunka. Among them, he is considered the best physical fitness. Gu Yundong has no experience in taking care of young children, but there is milk in the space, which is the most suitable food for her to supplement her nutrition. After drinking half the bowl of milk, Gu Yun couldn't help burping. Delicious. Gu Yundong put the bowl down and saw her squinting her eyes looking like she was enjoying herself. She couldn't help but softened her heart and her tone was much softer. Go on to sleep. Put the little guy in the middle, tuck the quilt, and Gu Yundong sat back by the fire again. The little girl was not fully awake, but after a while, she fell asleep again. The whole room was silent. Gu Yundong couldn't help but raised his head and looked at the wooden beams above his head, suddenly enjoying the environment. It's really quiet, there will never be the cry of the zombie, hee in my ears, and I don't need to be nervous and wait desperately at any time. She even had relatives by her side, which was something she didn't even dare to think about in her last life. Feeling like a dream. Dong dong. The sound of Yang's getting up suddenly came from his ears. Are you awake? Gu Yundong suddenly came to his senses, only to realize that a long time had passed before he knew it. Yes, get up early. It has been a long time, and in modern time, it is only after 4 o'clock, and the sky has not yet dawned. However, Yang has developed a biological clock. When she was at home, she would get up so early to cook, feed the pigs and clean the yard. Later, on the way to escape, because her brain was not very good, no one arranged for her to keep a vigil at night. Although she sometimes had to travel overnight, Yang's wake-up time did not change much. Gu Yundong stood up and moved his hands and feet, took the bag on the side and handed it to her. This is for you to eat. Yang looked down at the bag, his eyes lit up. Pansy and steamed buns. Shoo. Gu Yundong looked at the 2 children who were still sleeping. Yang's mouth immediately covered his mouth and shook his head hard. The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched twice. You eat one to fill your stomach first, then put the rest on the fire and bake it for them to eat when they wake up. I'm going to sleep for a while. If there is any noise outside or someone comes over, I will definitely remember to wake me up, you know. Yang Shi is already awake, and she can still rest assured to let her guard. She had to take the opportunity to sleep for a few hours, otherwise her body couldn't take it. No. Mr. Yang responded earnestly, and Gu Yundong just lay down and fell asleep. I don't know how long it took, but she was woken up by the heat. As soon as she narrowed her eyes, she heard Gu Yunka's tender voice. Really, I drank it last night. It was sweet and delicious. I remember living at my grandmother's house when I was a child. My grandmother would get up at 3 o'clock in the middle of the night to cook and then go to the vegetable market to sell vegetables. Now get me up at 3 or 4 and feel like crazy. End of this chapter.